Yes, yes, please.
Okay, so you can see my slides, right?
Yes, can.
All right. So today the great causes is not easy for the ignorant. The unbiased right views, our spiritual aspirations will be proper. So this comes from unbiased right views, meaning we have the right understanding. So by understanding of the Dharma, then our spiritual aspiration will be proper. So this right understanding, and especially in this Dharma degenerating age, there are many spiritual practices around. So we got to be very mindful that we do not fall into those deviant views. Then with the right views, then we get the right thinking. Is cultivating contemplation, so our mind becomes still and tranquil. So this right thinking is not just about from the right understanding, make generate right thoughts. This is why cultivating contemplation in here. There are two sides to this. One is from the right understanding. This right understanding got to come from the realization of the truth, because with that, then we get right thinking, and right thinking is the result of that right understanding. So therefore, if you want to do that, we need to have a contemplation. One, to write the right understanding can generate the right thought. There are two sides to this. Then our mind becomes still and tranquil. Why still and tranquil? Because to get into contemplation, you need to be still and tranquil. Otherwise, you can't get the realization. With right speech, we transmit the teachings and enter into body. So this is the speech in accord with the Dharma. Uphold right action, right livelihood, and right diligence. These are the result flowing from the right understanding and right thoughts. Then with right mindfulness and right concentration, we carry on the flawless practices, correctly accepting the great Dharma. We will review the true suchness, which is intrinsic within all of us. So when unbiased right views, we will have proper spiritual aspiration. Right thinking is cultivating contemplation and is meditation. So there's meditation. Obviously, masters say they know the various ways of meditation. I think from Tzu Chi, we do meditation through activities. Okay. But also there are other practices, and Master was concerned about sitting in meditation that and those high cultivators can wish into 4 jhanas. And if you notice the 4 jhanas, the Master explained, go into the higher heavenly realm, but it's still within the 3 realms. We could still be in a budding house, and that's the concern that's been raised. But if our minds are focused, then that is considered a meditation. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in sitting, but we can achieve this state of our mind being tranquil and still. Personally, for me, you probably know that I do my sitting every morning before Sin Fasting. So I do sit a lot, okay? And I find that very useful to reach the tranquil state, but you need to know how to do that. And that's the concern that Master has raised. So being in a true tranquil and clear state requires true mastery. And obviously that means that it requires lots of training, and all these cultivators, they can most of the life doing this. Therefore, we must not deviate from right views and right thinking. With Dharma or the Noble Eightfold Path, naturally our minds will then be still and tranquil. So this is important to understand, because we got to start with this right views and right thinking. I mean, otherwise the rest just cannot happen. And that's why the study of the teaching, it's about study of the truth, of the study of the universal truth, so to get the right understanding. Then only the right thoughts can be generated. And all this can only come about. You've got to be still and tranquil. Otherwise, our speech will not be easy to come out. Wholesome speech cannot easy to come out. Master mentioned they got very mindful of the 10 kinds of negative karma, which I explained to you before. The antidote is the 10 wholesome deeds. So just this, the other side of the coin to deal with this four of the speech, 3 of the body, and 3 of the mind. So we must practice right action and right livelihood, and obviously this action always very often the action comes from the right conduct. So that means again, the conduct can only come about when you have grown in your consciousness, because otherwise all the habitual tendencies will flow from there, from the 7 consciousness. Then we take the right livelihood. The right livelihood is what we do for a living. So we must not commit deviant actions. So as we earn money to make a living, we must earn it with a clear conscience. So the types of things that we do, and obviously it's too long to go into that discussion, but generally I think you all understand what right livelihood is about. And it's all about, briefly, it's all about copy the Dharma. So we must practice with right diligence or the right efforts. This putting in these efforts can only come from diligence. And so we got to put in the efforts to cultivate in our practice. And if you remember, some time ago, Master mentioned about efforts. This comes from having the 4 right efforts, and so the effort is required to be in the 5 spiritual roots, as well as in the 7 factors of enlightenment. So with right mindfulness and right concentration, then we carry out the flawless practices. And this flows. So all this flows in, right? So, and ultimately, this right mindfulness, right concentration, that's just where you can get into a state of wisdom learning. So the journey of the Noble Eightfold Path, and this is an interesting verse. These children were difficult to raise and teach. Before giving the Lotus teachings, the Buddha first radiated light, while Manjushri and Maitreya engaged in a dialogue. So Manjushri described how infinite kalpas ago there were 20,000 sun, moon, lamp, radiant Buddhas. One by one, these 20,000 Buddhas manifested in this world over incalculable period. The interval between each of their appearances was a very long period, obviously, because measured in kalpas, so in billions and trillions of years. So Sakyamuni Buddha followed each of these Buddha as a monastic engaged in spiritual practice. Now, I mean, it's really, I look at it, it's really inconceivable that do 20,000 sun, moon, lamp, radiant Buddhas, and there is a long period between each of them. And the Sakyamuni Buddha was cultivated as a monastic, serving the Buddhas throughout this incalculable period. So again, therefore, if you look in this context, it's going to be a very, 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 very long journey, okay, for us. So therefore, we better start being diligent now to be in practice. So the Buddha spent a very long time doing this, but he had learned was truly not simple. Obviously, I mean, for someone to go through all this period, I've already knowing the Dharma and getting more and more refined. So that's why the understanding of the Dharma, growing in the Dharma, is going to grow with precision. And at the end of the day, we got to remove every dust of affliction from us. So therefore, to help one person to succeed is truly not easy. And it's taken such a long time. So how much more to help to become a Buddha? So therefore, the vows that we take, have you realize that it's very, very, you can say that it's an inconceivable vow. Although we have reduced our desires and affliction, there is still dust like ignorance within us, and there's a point I was mentioning. So these afflictions are just like so minute it may be, it has to be eliminated through this innumerable lifetimes of cultivation. So we have reduced and eliminated our causing errors. Causing errors, which are large ones, that's easy to understand. They are obvious, so we can remove them. But as we go and more refine in our practice, we have to remove our dislike ignorance. And this can be subtle habitual tendencies and afflictions that are still there. For every one of us, even if we think we have no desires and have formed great aspiration to do great things, become a great bodhisattva vow, we still have dislike affliction. That's the part that we need to be very aware. I mean, that's like afflictions. Being mindful, as I mentioned yesterday, is practicing outside in, now inside out. So this like afflictions can only realize, be aware when you practice inside out. So the lessons learned. In each lifetime, there is only a very limited lifetime. So if we go back and try and understand the 20,000 sun, moon, lamp Buddhas and radiant Buddhas around, and there's so much long period, and this lifetime is only a split moment in relation to that. So we got a very limited lifetime. So we got to be seize the moment to take the Dharma to heart and to develop the wisdom life, but however difficult it may be, and that's what we got to put in great efforts to do that. So because we still have affliction, and even though we practice, we can easily fall back to the burning house because when we never know when our emotion will arise, the moment we can't control the emotion, the anger will easily flare up. So got to be very, very aware of the arising of our inner self. So we remain immersed in the five abilities of views, of sentient beings, of life, etc. And these are the five abilities when we are living in this current period of kappa ability. So and then we can easily enter back the dangerous burning house if we are not mindful and aware of what we're doing. So when then Master went on towards the end and said, well, how do we do this? And very briefly, Master mentioned about the four wisdoms. The four wisdoms, problem is that the four wisdoms are covered by us. And so what are these four wisdoms? Okay, so first of all, Master mentioned about the great perfect mirror wisdom. This great perfect mirror wisdom is the great mirror of deep awareness. The deep awareness. See, the mirror reflects what it is. There's nothing more, nothing less. But the problem is our mind reflect back what we do not like to see, or we enhance what we like to see. That's the wisdom of the great perfect mirror. Number two, Master Ding, I'll just add on to that. Second type is the wisdom of equality. The wisdom of equality is this is the equality of deep awareness. So this equality of deep awareness is when we see this. You see, when our mind sees something, whether people, matters, or objects, we see we have boundaries, right? We have discrimination, we have differences in our mind. It's all being brought up by the mundane consciousness. So when that happens, when we distinguish one from the other, oh, he's not a Buddhist, or someone say he's a Muslim. So all these differences are all our inner boundaries that we put upon how we group them. So the wisdom of equality is that everyone is at Buddha nature. And you remember the was like in bodhisattva, and that's sort of wisdom that one should be looking at. Then there is the individualizing deep awareness wisdom, or a deep. This is the individuality of deep awareness. So despite that we have this wisdom of equality, but we also need to recognize the capability or the attainment of someone. So we do not slight the achievements of that individual. So therefore, we then understand the discern, the skills. So therefore, this is part of the skillful means in our practice, right? So despite the equality, we still respect the individuality of that person, because that particular person They have people who love him or her. So we cannot say that that person as no one and oh, we're just one of them. Like actually we would be treating a herd of sheep. So the fourth one is all accomplishing wisdom. All accomplishing wisdom this is the wisdom that we spontaneously involve in what we do in our bodily activities, that we engage in a lot of activities to serve the underprivileged, for example. And that is the spontaneous accomplishment of our vows. Okay, so that's the four wisdom in that. And all these four is actually arising from the deep awareness. So this is about cultivating inside out. So contemplation is a little bit long today. You should always reflect upon yourself to get rid of the ripples in your consciousness. The ripples of consciousness a lot of time come from the mundane consciousness, and when the worldly winds blows, and they'll form ripples. So these are the ripples caused by droplets of desire, emotion, falling into the stillness of a pond of your consciousness. So imagine if a consciousness is still as a pond, but all you need to do is these droplets of desire and emotion that come out, obviously the ripples will form in the stillness of the pond. So do not be confused with reverberating sound or silence of the teachings. Now, when you are in stillness, sometimes you get, I explained to you all, you get reverberations of from the sound of silence. And these are teachings that come to you. So we must understand the differences between this reverberating sound and these droplets of desire and emotion. And this requires a lot of training to be able to discern what is which one, which is which. The confusion arises from the distorted mundane consciousness of desire, rage, and harm. And this is what the confusion is between the two. And because we like I said, without the deep awareness, we like to see a picture and not like a mirror, because the mirror that we see, we interpret it what the mirror looks like. So we are not a perfect mirror. The reverberating sound of silence do not cause ripples. Only the mind does. Now, this is what it is, the deep awareness. So unless we have the deep awareness, we do not understand how the manifestation of that thought arises. And that's where the droplets of desire, emotion will come. So spiritual insight from the silence is the true sound of wisdom, layering through the channels to reach your inner ears of listening. And it was a question, I brought this up today because we want to ask the question yesterday about listening. So the spiritual insight from the silence is the sound of true wisdom. Going through the channels, going through channels is the channels to reach up to your inner ears. And that's where the inner ears of listening will come. So let the reverberation of your inner light be the hope for others, be inspired out from the crevices of samsara. So the reverberation of the inner light, my master said earlier, is that imagine if you want to inspire others, and when the Buddha took such a long time, so it's going to be a long journey. How can you then inspire ones? So you have to bring forth your inner light, so that you can be inner hope. The inner hope can arise from inside out to give hope for others. Then we can inspire them out from the depth of samsara. So you must brighten your inner light before others can lay their hope on you. This is my response to today's teaching, as well as to Sister Yvonne's question yesterday. So relationship, reflective relationship. Everything you see in others, everything that others see in you is a reflection of the mind. So whatever we say about others, we also say about ourselves. So be mindful of your speech and action, and be wise in what you say and do. Right, Gan En, brothers, sisters.
Truly grateful to BrotherChin's wonderful insight and great sharing.